Welcome to Future Trends, where we examine the latest stories reshaping tomorrow's international dynamics. This week's headlines: Hamas calls on Iran not to target neighboring countries, South Sudan power-sharing collapse drives violence, mass displacement, fast fashion garments pile up in South Asia as conflict grounds planes, and share of global web traffic generated by humans is shrinking. Starting with politics, Hamas calls on Iran not to target neighboring countries. The Palestinian-Iran-aligned militant group Hamas has called on Iran to not target neighboring countries, while still reaffirming Tehran's right to respond to the US-Israeli attacks. This is the first time the group has publicly commented on Iranian policies. It has expressed solidarity with Iran during the war, but appeared to steer clear from threatening any retaliatory action so far. UK exploring additional Gulf deployments after Minehunter withdrawal. The options to increase its military presence in the Persian Gulf follows Iranian attacks on shipping, which has increased security risks in the region. The move is part of broader efforts by Western allies to protect maritime trade routes and maintain regional stability. Madagascar anti-corruption chief appointed as new PM. It comes after the last Prime Minister and his cabinet was sacked by President Randrianirina. He will oversee the government during a time of uncertainty after interim President Randrianirina, a colonel who took power off the back of the country's Gen Z protests in October last year, promised a string of reforms and has courted closer ties with Russia. Chile marks sharp turn to the right with new president. Hardliner José Antonio Cast was sworn in as Chile's president, marking the nation's most stark shift to the right since the dictatorship of General Augusto Pinochet, whom Cast greatly admires. Cast vowed in his inaugural address to follow through on sweeping reforms, including building physical border barriers along the frontier with Bolivia, China wooing Paraguay's political class away from Taiwan. With just 6.4 million people, landlocked Paraguay is a tiny player on the world stage. But it is Taipei's last diplomatic ally in South America and one of 12 countries in the world that still recognize Taiwan. China's is courting Paraguay officials and has let them know they risk missing out on major economic gains by sticking with Taiwan over Beijing. Moving to stories in conflict, drone strikes kill in Sudan and Congo. The 17 victims of a drone attack in Sudan's White Nile province included students, teachers, and a health worker, with others injured. Meanwhile, another drone hit East Congo's biggest city, killing a French aid worker amid ongoing fighting between the Congolese army and the AFC M23 rebel group. The UN warned that attacks targeting aid workers could constitute war crimes. 6 vessels hit by Iranian drone boats, sea mines. Iranian drone boats attacked 2 fuel tankers in Iraqi waters, killing at least 1 crew member. Separately, 4 other vessels were struck by projectiles in Gulf waters. Iran's IRGC has blocked the Strait of Hormuz, threatening to target any transiting ships amid the ongoing US-Israel conflict with Iran. French plan to end Lebanon war includes recognition of Israel. The Lebanese government has accepted the plan as a basis for peace talks, deeply alarmed that the renewed war, triggered by Hezbollah's rocket attacks on Israel, could devastate the country. The French framework could help de-escalate the war, prevent a prolonged Israeli occupation of southern Lebanon, increase international pressure to disarm Hezbollah, and open the door to a historic peace deal. South Sudan power-sharing collapse drives violence, mass displacement. Hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced by fighting in South Sudan since the start of the year, as the collapse of a power-sharing accord between the government and the main opposition movement drives new violence across the country. The situation is particularly severe in Jonglei State, where the national military SSPDF began an offensive in January after losing garrisons to opposition forces, leading to widespread abuses against civilians. New wave of JNIM attacks in Burkina Faso. Jihadists linked to Al-Qaeda have intensified attacks on civilians, killing at least 38 and kidnapping 9 women in less than a month. The attacks are blamed on the group for the support of Islam and Muslims, also known as JNIM, one of the most powerful Islamist militant groups operating across the Sahel, which has spent years expanding its insurgency across Burkina Faso and neighboring countries, including Benin. Now for the latest news in economics. US issues 30-day sanctions waiver for purchase of Russian oil at sea. The decision aims to increase global oil supply and stabilize prices after disruptions caused by conflict in the Middle East pushed oil prices above $100 per barrel. Some leaders, including Ukraine's government, criticized the move, arguing it could provide additional revenue to Russia while the war in Ukraine continues. Meanwhile, Iran has sent at least 11.7 million barrels of crude oil through the Strait of Hormuz since the war began on Feb 28, all of which were headed to China, even as the war between US, Israel, and Iran has jeopardized broader supplies. India proposes Economic Stabilization Fund to tackle global headwinds. The Indian government announced the creation of a $6.2 billion Economic Stabilization Fund to give policymakers additional fiscal flexibility to absorb global economic shocks, such as supply chain disruptions and commodity price volatility arising from geopolitical tensions. It includes increased fertilizer subsidies, worth about $2 billion, to counter higher global input costs. Norway bans Hormuz transits. The Norwegian Maritime Authority has announced the strictest step yet made by any government agency or industry association to address the risk of Iranian attack in the Strait of Hormuz. An inbound transit ban. No Norwegian-flagged ships are permitted to enter the Arabian Gulf, regardless of the shipowner's own risk assessments. China releases fertilizer reserves as war disrupts global supplies. The move for commercial fertilizer stockpiles comes ahead of the spring planting season, as war in the Middle East disrupts global trade flows and pushes up prices of key crop nutrients. Fast fashion garments pile up in South Asia as Middle East conflict grounds planes. Shipments of garments for Zara owner Inditex and other major clothing retailers are stranded at airports in Bangladesh and India, as the conflict in the Middle East forces airlines to cancel flights. Fast fashion brands around the world rely on South Asian factories in Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan for production of new t-shirts, dresses, and jeans. Now for news in development. Share of global web traffic generated by humans is shrinking, while bot activity is on the rise. According to Imperva Badbot reports, in 2018, humans still accounted for 62% of web traffic, with malicious bots at 20% and benign bots at 18%. But over the past 7 years, the balance of web traffic has shifted dramatically. Humans now represent less than half of all traffic, while malicious bots have surged to 37%, accounting for well over twice the traffic of benign bots. UN seeks $325 million for Lebanon as war displaces 800,000 people. Over 1/7 of the country's population have been internally displaced due to renewed fighting between Israel and Hezbollah. Aid agencies warn that funding shortfalls are forcing them to ration life-saving assistance, with food and shelter needs rising rapidly. China approves new ethnic minority law, prioritizes use of Mandarin. It formalizes policies to promote Mandarin as the national common language in education, official business, and public places. China's government has been accused for decades of pursuing policies to force assimilation across the vast country into the Han majority, and rights groups believe the new law could further marginalize minority groups. $40 billion for Canadian Northern defense and infrastructure. Prime Minister Carney said the investments would defend and transform Canada's north, including new highways, deep water ports, and hydropower projects. Global sorghum pangenome accelerates discovery of resilient crop traits. It's a major advance in sorghum genomics, designed to speed discovery of traits that help crops thrive under heat, drought, and highly variable growing conditions. Sorghum is one of the world's most climate-resilient staple crops, relied upon by millions of people in regions where rainfall is unpredictable and farm inputs are limited. Finally, our social news: asteroid hit the North Sea and sent a 110 tsunami across Europe. A football field-sized asteroid landed in the North Sea tens of millions of years ago, forming the Silver Pit crater and generating the tsunami. Researchers said the discovery settles a two-decade debate and provides new insight into the scale of prehistoric asteroid impacts and their influence on Earth's geological history. Toxic, forever chemicals used to extract 99% pure battery-grade lithium. Scientists have discovered a way to simultaneously destroy hazardous PFAS chemicals, which resist breakdown, and yield high-quality battery-grade lithium. It uses spent PFAS to extract lithium from high-salinity brine, using one waste stream to solve another's scarcity. Astronomers spot super-Earth circling a star 83 light-years away. Using a space telescope, the presence of a new exoplanet was discovered in observations from transiting exoplanet survey satellite tests. The research team detected a transit signal in the light curve of the star TOI 1080, an inactive M4V-type red dwarf. Secret of hedgehog hearing discovered at far beyond human range. The creatures, which are in decline in Europe, hear sounds at a much higher frequency than humans, meaning they could be signaling to each other with noises that we simply cannot hear. The discovery could help scientists work out how to protect the animals from stressful noises when in rescue centers, or develop sound repellents to deter hedgehogs from going near machines that can kill them, such as cars. Man used ChatGPT to build a cancer vaccine for dying dog. When tech entrepreneur Paul Conningham's dog Rosie was given months to live, he turned to ChatGPT to find a cure. Using AI to identify Rosie's tumor mutations, he then partnered with scientists to create a custom mRNA vaccine, which reportedly shrank Rosie's tumor by half and potentially signaling a landmark moment for personalized medicine through software. That's your Future Trends update for this week. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time with more stories reshaping our world.